Marcus Sullivan sat at the corner table of the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, a glass of wine catching the afternoon light. He had everything a man could want, a billion-dollar empire, properties across 3 continents, and a name that made boardrooms fall silent. But on this particular Tuesday, none of that mattered. Because in his jacket pocket was a bottle of pills, and in his mind was a decision he'd been wrestling with for months. This lunch meeting was supposed to be his last. Then a young waitress did something so small, so quiet, that no one else even noticed. And in that single moment, everything changed. Before we continue with this powerful story, if you believe in the transformative power of kindness, please subscribe to Kindness Lights and hit that like button. Share your own stories of unexpected kindness in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone needs to hear today. Now, let's return to Marcus and discover how one silent act of compassion saved a life. Marcus Sullivan hadn't slept properly in 6 months. His wife had left him a year ago, taking their daughter to Seattle. His business partner had betrayed him, stealing clients and spreading lies that tarnished his reputation. And his father, the only person who truly understood him, had passed away 3 months earlier. The empire Marcus had built suddenly felt like a beautiful prison, and he was utterly alone inside it. That Tuesday, he'd scheduled a lunch meeting with his lawyer to finalize his will. He'd made his decision. After this meeting, he would go home, write letters to the few people who might care, and end his pain. He'd chosen this particular restaurant because it held no memories, no emotional attachments. Just elegant indifference, which felt appropriate. The waitress who approached his table was young, perhaps 25, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Her name tag read Elena. She greeted him warmly and took his order, the salmon, a side salad, and a glass of Chardonnay. Marcus barely looked at her. He was lost in his own darkness, mentally rehearsing the words he'd write in those final letters. When Elena returned with his wine, she placed it carefully on the table. Marcus reached for it immediately, needing something to steady his nerves before his lawyer arrived. But as his hand wrapped around the stem, Elena did something unexpected. Without a word, without any visible alarm, she gently picked up the glass, gave him an apologetic smile, and walked away. Marcus sat there, confused. Had he done something wrong? Was there a problem with the wine? 2 minutes later, Elena returned with another glass of the same Chardonnay. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said quietly. "I noticed a small chip on the rim of the first glass. I didn't want you to cut your lip." She placed the new glass down with the same careful attention and walked away before he could respond. Marcus stared at the wine glass. A chip. She'd noticed a chip that he hadn't even seen. His lawyer, Richard, arrived moments later, and they began their meeting. But Marcus couldn't focus. His mind kept returning to that simple gesture. Throughout lunch, he observed Elena. She moved through the restaurant with quiet attentiveness, anticipating needs before they were spoken. When an elderly woman struggled to read the menu, Elena gently offered to describe the dishes. When a child dropped his fork, she appeared with a new one and a warm smile before the parents even noticed. She wasn't performing, there were no grand gestures seeking recognition. She was simply present, careful, kind. The meeting with Richard ended. The will was signed. But instead of leaving to execute his dark plan, Marcus found himself sitting there, watching Elena work. He called her over. "That glass you changed earlier," he said. "Was there really a chip?" Elena hesitated, and for a moment, something flickered in her eyes. She glanced at his face, really looked at him, and seemed to make a decision. "Yes, sir. There was a small chip on the rim. I know it seems like a tiny thing, but tiny things matter. Sometimes they matter more than we realize." "Why do you do this work?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. She was clearly bright, attentive, capable of more. Elena smiled. "My little brother was in the hospital last year. Leukemia. I watched nurses work double shifts, staying late to read him stories when I couldn't be there. They didn't have to do that. They weren't paid for those extra minutes. But those small acts of kindness gave him hope. Gave us all hope. He's in remission now, and I learned something. We're all just walking each other home, you know. Every single person who comes through that door is carrying something heavy. If I can lighten that load, even by making sure they don't cut their lip on a chipped glass, then I've done something that matters. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. When was the last time someone had truly seen him? Not Marcus Sullivan the billionaire, not the name in Forbes magazine, but just him. A human being who might be hurting. "Are you okay, sir?" Elena asked gently. And perhaps it was her kindness, or perhaps it was exhaustion from carrying his pain alone for so long, but Marcus found himself telling the truth. "No," he said simply. "I'm not okay." Elena pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, ignoring the restaurant manager's surprised look. "Do you want to talk about it?" For the next hour, Marcus talked. He told her about his daughter, about the business betrayal, about his father's death, about the crushing loneliness. She didn't offer platitudes or easy solutions. She just listened with her full attention, the same care she'd given to changing that wine glass. When he finally fell silent, she said, "I don't know what you're planning to do after you leave here. But I know that pain isn't permanent, even when it feels like it is. My brother was so sick that we planned his funeral. We picked out songs. And now he's in 7th grade, complaining about math homework. Life turns, Mr. Sullivan. It always turns." "How do you know my name?" Marcus asked. She smiled. "Your reservation. And also, you're kind of famous. But sitting here, talking with you, I don't see a millionaire. I see someone who's forgotten that he matters. Not for what he's built or what he owns, but just because he exists. You matter because you're here. That's enough." Marcus left the restaurant 3 hours later.